Okay, thank you everyone for attending the Community Foundation's virtual meeting tonight. And as always, we appreciate your patience if we have any technical hiccups. A couple of technical items before we get the content of tonight's meeting. On March 17, 2020, the Governor of California issued an executive order suspending certain provisions of the Brown Act in order to allow for local legislative bodies to conduct their meetings telephonically or by other electronic means. Pursuant to the CDC's social distancing guidelines, which discourage large public gatherings, the Foundation Board is currently holding meetings virtually. Please know that we want to hear from you. If you are in the audience and you would like to address the board during public comment for items not on the agenda or any of the agendized items, please use the raise your hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Once you raise your hand, the executive director will see that someone wants to talk and she will let me know that you are waiting. When it's your turn to speak, the executive director will call your name, she will unmute you, and you will be given 3 minutes to address the board. If you are joining us by telephone, you also may address the board during public comment by pressing *9, and the executive director will address you and unmute you. You will also be given 3 minutes to address the board. Please note, anyone in attendance may only speak once per agenda item. Leslie, did we receive any emails from the public in relation to any of the agenda items? Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and begin the meeting. Item number 1, call to order and welcome. So I'd like to now call a special meeting of the San Bruno Community Foundation's Board of Directors of April 4th, 2022 to order. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Melissa. I'll start off with board member, Irving Torres.
Here.
Superior Puri.
Here.
Board member Melissa Moreno.
Here.
Treasurer Pac Lin.
Here.
And Secretary Raul Gomez is here. Vice President Jim Roy.
Here.
And President Melissa Natani Jones.
Here.
All accounted for. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 3, public comment. Would any of the members of the public like to address the board on a topic not on the agenda? If so, please indicate by using the raise your hand button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. No? Okay, no hands raised. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 4, approval of minutes from the March 2nd, 2022 regular board meeting. Secretary Gomez.
Thank you. So in your meeting packet today, you have meeting minutes from our meeting of March 2nd. If we don't have any questions, I'd like to turn it back to Melissa to have a roll call to approve the meeting minutes.
Sure. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Anyone? Okay. And may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I will make the motion to approve the minute from March 2nd.
Thank you, Pac and Jim. Thank you. Okay. Roll call, please, Raul.
Sure thing. Board member Irving Torres.
Aye.
Board member Superior Perry.
Yes.
Board member Melissa Moreno.
Aye.
Treasurer Pac Lin.
Aye.
Secretary Raul is an aye. Vice President Jim Roy.
Aye.
And President Melissa Natani Jones.
Aye.
Thank you. All are accounted for.
Thank you. We are going to go ahead and move to item number 5, Executive Director's Report. I'll turn the time over to Leslie.
Great, thank you. It's great to see everyone here tonight. We have a very packed agenda, and I'm excited to get to that in a few minutes. You have in your written packets my report, which I'm going to assume you've all read, so I just want to highlight a few items. First of all, I would like to introduce our new program manager to you, Jessica Carrillo. She's been on board since late January, but this is the first board meeting she's had an opportunity to attend. Last month, she was dealing with the deluge of scholarship applications that came in the day before the board meeting. She brings to the foundation experience in property management, real estate, retail, and psychology. Active in our local schools and community, she values and appreciates San Bruno and is excited to contribute to the well-being of its residents and students. Along with her husband and 2 young sons, Jessica has called San Bruno home since 2018. And you will all have the opportunity to work with her related to the Cressmer Scholarship and the Community Grants Fund. Jessica, did you want to say a few words to the board just to say hello? You need to unmute.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. And I'm so excited and grateful to be a part of this positively contributing foundation within the community. And I see it every day, and I love San Bruno so much. And so I'm grateful to be a part of it. So thank you and nice to meet you. And I'm looking forward to working with you.
Great, thank you. She's doing a great job in her first 2 months. And you will see more of her as we move forward. I just want to also mention that Stephanie Rutgers has finished up her interim assignment. She did that in March, and I just want to thank Stephanie again for stepping in and helping fill in after Lauren left and before Jessica started, and helping get Jessica up to speed and training her when she first came on board. So thank you to Stephanie. I also wanted to give Mark Zaffarano the opportunity to say a few words to the board.
Yes, thank you. I'll be brief. Some of you may know that I announced my retirement to the City Council at a public meeting just a little while ago after 11 years with the city. So I wanted to let all of you know publicly as well, and tell you how much I've enjoyed working with the board. And I'm only sorry that I haven't met some of you aside from in this virtual environment. It's a strange world we live in, when the things that you affect so much and touch are only virtual. It's really strange, but really appreciate the opportunity. I'll be working through June 3rd, and then we'll be on the payroll for a while. You know, running out some vacation time that I guess I must not have used when I was with the city. So I just wanted to let everybody know that, and thank you very much for the opportunity to guide the foundation.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has been an amazing support for us from the beginning and helping create the foundation, and will be sorely missed. We will be acknowledging his contributions to the foundation and to San Bruno at one of our upcoming board meetings. So we won't do that formal presentation now, but we wanted Mark the opportunity to share personally with all of you that he would be stepping down. The last thing in my report is just to give you a little context for the strategic grants. We have a meeting with a number of grant proposals before you tonight. And I just want to remind the board that last June for fiscal year 21-22, the year we're in, we budgeted nearly $46 million for strategic grants. Of course, $40.5 million of that has gone to the RAC construction grant, which was approved in June, but not the grant agreement was not executed until July, so this fiscal year. And that's when we record the expense on our books. So that $40.5 million grant is showing up this fiscal year. We also added a $5 million placeholder for potential significant strategic grant arising out of the community listening campaign and the strategic planning process, as well as $500,000 for other smaller strategic grants, such as continuation for support of Community Day, additional COVID relief grants, and other strategic grants the foundation has been investigating. Other than the RAC construction grant, we have not recorded any additional strategic grants this year. So this will be the first sort of crop of strategic grants that the board will be considering other than the RAC grant. this fiscal year. There will be $370,000 being proposed later this evening, a $30,000 grant for Community Day, a $290,000 music education strategic initiative extension, and an additional $50,000 for the Tanforan Memorial. So even if all of these grants are approved this evening, we are still well below the budgeted amount for this year. And I thought it was just helpful to give you that context as we move forward into those program agenda items in a few minutes. That is my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Okay, so if any questions from the public? No? Leslie, are there any, do you see anything? Okay, great. All right, so by the way, this is just a report, so there will be no action taken. We'll go ahead and move over to item number 6. We have 3 items on the consent calendar today as listed on the agenda. Unless there are any questions, I call for a motion to adopt the consent calendar items.
So moved.
I'll
I have a
second.
move. Thank you. Okay, and Raul, I'll take it over for you for call to vote.
Thank you. So Board Member Irving Torres,
Aye.
Board Member Superior Perry,
Aye.
Board Member Melissa Moreno,
Aye.
Treasurer Packlin,
Aye.
Secretary Raul Gomez is an aye, Vice President Jim Ruane,
Aye.
and President Melissa Natani Jones.
Aye,
All are accounted for. Thank you.
thank you. Moving on to item number 7. Boy, you all are just so swift tonight. We're going to move to conduct of business, and we have a few items here. Our first is to receive a report on the San Bruno Recreation and Aquatic Center from the City of San Bruno. We're going to bring them over, and before we get started, I'm just going to share that as the chair of the ad hoc committee on the Recreation and Aquatic Center project, I will give a brief report from the committee. Vice President Ruane and I sit on the city's RAC Advisory Committee, which meets monthly to receive updates from the city on the project. As you know, the foundation is funding the project through a series of 8 grants totaling $50 million, with grant payments begin made on a quarterly basis. In January and February of 2022, the foundation made quarterly RAC grant payments totaling just under $4.1 million. As of March 15, 2022, the foundation has paid out a total of $14.7 million in RAC grant payments and has a balance of $35.3 million left to pay. The city will be submitting its next set of RAC grant reports in April, after which the foundation will make payments on the 6th active RAC grants. As you know, the foundation board is receiving quarterly updates from the City of San Bruno on progress on the construction of the Recreation and Aquatic Center project. Tonight, we have the team from the city who will give the presentation. We have with us City Manager Jovan Grogan, Project Manager Rod Makrageg, Public Works Director Matt Lee, and Community Services Director Ann Matola. Welcome, and we're eager to hear the progress the city has made on the RAC since we last heard from you in December. We literally were just talking about how we need to take a look at it because so much has been done. So we're excited for the presentation tonight.
All right, so thank you, President Natani Jones. I'll take that as my cue. So, perfect. So, good evening. Good evening. Jovan Grogan, City Manager, really excited to be here. And we're excited to provide you with an update on the Aquatic and Recreation Center. Truly an amazing project for the city of San Bruno that is, as you know, and the president mentioned, really is being financed in large part, a $60 million project and $50 million coming from a grant from the San Bruno Community Foundation. So, on behalf of the city, I can't continue to thank you guys enough for that grant, as well as the entire community. San Bruno will be so enriched for decades to come from this grant. And so we are excited to provide you with two presentations tonight on the Aquatic and Rec Center. The first one will be a project update by our project manager, Rod McRae. The second one will be a budgetary update on the project that will be provided by Director Ann Matola from the Community Services Department and Matthew Lee from our Public Works Department. And so with that, why don't we launch directly into that project update by our project manager, Rod McRae.
Right, thank you, Juban, and always excited to service the city on this very important project. So, and good evening, San Bruno Community Foundation members and everyone that's logged in or zoomed in tonight. Again, my name is Rod McRae. I'm the city project manager for this rock project. I'll be providing you a construction update. I think I believe I have Tim Shaw, our construction manager from Griffin, is with me tonight. And possibly we have our guests from Peninsula Clean Energy to help us talk about the solar project or solar PV pilot for this project. Everybody can see the screen? Okay. All right, thank you. So we have a similar agenda where we'll talk about some information about the project completed today. Schedule update, change order report, what's happening the next 30 days, and we will talk about a little bit about the solar PV system. So as we know, we started in September 2021. Project still trending to complete the fall of 2023. We made some good progress the last few months. We are about 12% complete to the end of March. As you can see some of this, you can see the photos down below here. There's through the EarthCom, how much work has been done. I'm going to show you some more photos on the next slides. The last 3 months, you can see the photo back in January. And now in end of March, you can see what's been done. We have some of the critical items that we completed. We got the temporary line put in. So we worked on our wall. We completed our wall basically. We backfilled the old pool. Now it's flat, getting ready, and start grading for the building. The next slide, there are just some action photos so you can see closely what's going on, how they built the soil nail wall. We first cut the slope. We start drilling it and setting those nails into it. Next is we grout them and we test them and we shotcrete them. You can look at the photos on number 3 and number 4. And we do that routine for several layers. And the completed walls, you can see in the middle picture, we got 6 layers of it done. That's the deepest, probably about 28 to 30 feet deep of that wall that's been done. So we're looking to get going and remove some of this dirt and allow for the grading of the building for the next phase. Let's now go to the schedule update. So you can see we have phase 1A being done. Basically, we got after the soil nail wall is done. We started doing the phase 1C, which is the building portion. And we are scheduled to start the geopier next month. I'll show you what a geopier looks like on the next few slides. And we'll start excavation and grading for the indoor pool soon. That will also be happening this month. And you're gonna hear a little bit more about some of the work that's taken place on the city parkway as we're getting close. As you can see, the typical construction progress curve is getting steeper. That's getting busier, as you can see, as we approach those months. So we're gonna be providing some update and public outreach to make sure we plan all our construction activities to minimize public inconvenience. The next slide is a change order. There's really no change from the last time it was reported. We have completed all the change order that been approved. That's about $343,000. 71% of that goes to pay for the temporary water line and the disposal of some of the hazardous materials. And 27% goes for public safety, basically to pay for some of the additional tree removal that could be hazardous to the building and to the public as well. And 2% goes to some of the utility improvement for abandonment. So what's happening for the next 30 days? This is what the site looks like. We are basically going to be cleaning up the soil nail, getting it all done. We're going to move 3,500 cubic yard of surplus dirt. Unfortunately, those are contaminated, so it has to be disposed somewhere special, but it's getting done now. It's getting moved. It's basically moving earth right now. The building site and the start of geopier will be taking place. We're grading there right now behind that tree, and the geopier is going to be starting sometime this week. They're moving in, and the indoor excavation will also begin this month, or the indoor pool excavation, I'm sorry. Let me show you what the geopier looks like. So you can see geopier is a drill shaft. It goes down 7 to 13 feet in our project. It's 22-inch diameter. We drill a hole, we fill it in with crushed rock and compact them so we could give some stability to the ground to support the legs of the building, I should say, or the foot of the building. As you can see, the shaded purple area, those were the area, that's the area where the geopier is gonna go. We're gonna drill about 241 of them in the perimeter of the building. That's gonna take place this week and next week, and probably the following week, and we should be done with that. Next one is just to give you an update. We'll be working on the pedestrian accessibility and crosswalk safety improvement work at the intersection of the Soto Way and City Parkway, as shown on this slide. We'll be providing a sidewalk, ADA accessible sidewalk from the parking lot, the pool parking lot, towards the DeSoto Way, and a crosswalk, and towards the city park, towards the park pathway. So we'll have a paved area to access the park. Also, we will be completing the missing sidewalk around that corner going the DeSoto Way. So we'll have a continuous path of sidewalk from the parking lot. Next slide is the solar PV update. As you can see, the project is designed to receive solar panel in the roof. It could take about 400 or 500 panels. That's about 272 kilowatt of solar power that can generate 420 megawatt hour per year. That could basically offset a third of the PG&E power. That's estimated to or estimated load of about 1259 megawatt hour a year. So we could take a third of that using solar. There's an estimated cost to construct that, which is not part of this budget, is 1.3 million. But those two ways that most agencies will go about it to finance it. They can fully purchase the PV system with no upfront costs, but the city have to prepare the plans and specs. City have to solicit the low bid. City has to install, operate, maintain, and monitor the system. But it will be less monthly payment at the end every month for utility rate. The power purchase agreement is another option to partner with someone, which we're going to talk about that later. There will be no upfront cost if we go this route. Our partner will prepare the plans and spec for us. The partner will solicit the competitive bid from various supplier and installer. A partner to install and operate, maintain, and monitor They'll arrange the fixed monthly rate per kilowatt hour with minimum escalation. It's definitely less than the PG&E rate. And they'll have an option. We will have option to buy out the PPA or the power purchase agreement for certain years. It could be a 6 years or a 10 years or a 15 years. That can be worked out in this project power purchase agreement. So we are currently working with Peninsula Clean Energies to partner as far as getting a power purchase agreement. His name is Dave Pribus. I think we could bring him in. He could allow to talk.
He is in now.
Okay. So yeah. So Peninsula Clean Energy is the San Mateo County's not-for-profit and a locally led electricity provider. So, and their mission is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by expanding access to the sustainable and affordable energy solutions. So, Dave, why don't you go ahead and take it away from here?
Sure, and thanks for the opportunity to discuss this project and potential to work with you on it. So yeah, as Rod said, we are the energy provider for San Mateo County. So PG&E maintains the wires that bring the energy, but we actually procure the energy that comes over those wires into this building. And our goal is we're a nonprofit. We're a joint powers association. San Bruno is one of our members. So the city council member from San Bruno is on our board. And our goal is greenhouse gas reduction, and so we are looking to help our partners and customers develop renewable energy solutions, and this project is one that we are hoping we can help with. The next slide, please. So we have a program that we've been developing, where we are working across the county, across different cities, as well as the county of San Mateo, to identify buildings that are candidates for solar, to help design solar systems for those buildings. And then our next step is to aggregate these projects together and go out and procure the equipment. And then we would maintain the equipment for the life of the project, and we would offer what's called a power purchase agreement. So that's generally about it would be a 20-year agreement. And the way power purchase agreement works is rather than you paying, I think Rod said, $1.2 million today for a solar system that will then save you money over the next life of the system. There's no upfront cost to you. You will get savings, but the cost of the equipment is amortized over the life of the power purchase agreement, and you'll still capture some savings from because the overall savings will be greater than the cost of the equipment, and so some goes to the equipment and the rest is captured by you. And again, the real benefit is that there's no upfront cost, and we're going to do the procurement. So we run the RFP. It will be compliant with requirements, prevailing wage, and other requirements that all of our member cities have, including the county. And then we would manage the installation, and then we would be the ones who you would have the agreement with. And so the total savings will depend on the way the building is used and the rate that you're on. But looking at what we expect to be the solar production from the system, depending on which rate you're on, the savings will be different. So if the solar's on a B6 rate, if that system showed up on the building tomorrow, let's assume the building's complete, we would expect under current rates that you would save about $100,000 a year total. And then if you were on the B10 rate, about $64,000. And the difference in these rates, and just for a little context, the B6 rate may look better for the solar, but it may not be the best rate overall, because you're then paying a higher rate at other times when you're not using the solar. So we would work with you to optimize whatever would be the best rate, and then the savings would come from that. And so the way it would work is there would be, we would have an estimate of the savings. We're going to run the RFP. We don't have equipment pricing yet, but we would be open book with you and show you like, this is what the pricing came in at. This is a small program management cost that we would have, and this just covers our variable costs of maintaining the systems, of managing any issues that come up. And then the rest would be savings that flow to you. The really big advantage in putting a solar system on is the savings over time, because the utility rates have gone up a lot. And actually, I've just gone back recently and updated my savings calculations from just a year ago. And those, actually, the utility rates have gone up about 20% since last year. So those numbers I gave you are actually last year's numbers. You could add about 20% to what the savings would be. And a lot of this is due to some of the wildfire and other changes that have been happening that are being pushed into the rate base. So over time, if utility rates continue to escalate this way, whereas the PPA would either have a very low escalation rate of 1%, we would shoot for 0% if we can do it, but we might need to do 1%. It's still over the course of the project, and this is again with no upfront costs. Your NPV, however you would look at it, whatever discount rate you apply, is still close to $1 million over the life of the project, and that's with no upfront costs. So the other thing is just for context, and Rod and I were talking about this earlier today. If you do purchase the system today, you as a foundation and the city of San Bruno as a city nonprofit cannot capture the tax benefits that go with this, and so part of our program is partnering with an entity that can capture the tax benefits and share some of those back with us, and that's reflected in the PPA rate. So it really is the way to go for especially for a nonprofit entity or a tax exempt entity to go the PPA route, because the tax values, which are still considerable, can be shared to a degree that you can't if you buy it yourselves. So I think this is the last slide. I'm happy to address any questions, but I think the goal here was just to give you a heads up on the program in general, that this is part of a bigger portfolio. We would love to include this project in the portfolio. We have 2 other sites that are also in construction and moving forward, and happen to be on a good timeline that would, we're expecting the roof to be ready for the solar around the time that we're ready to put it on. So it seems like a good fit. It would help you get the solar on right at the start of the building, and that's we're certainly interested to talk more and answer any questions.
Thank you, Dave. So so the goal is to work with Peninsula Clean Energy, and we're working on trying to get city manager authorized to execute a power purchase agreement with Peninsula, and so we'll be able to find if there's savings and benefits for us, we could proceed with that agreement. That's after he determines, after they were able to get all the competitive pricing from various providers and things like that. So that details will come in later. So yeah, thank you, Dave. And that will be the end of our presentation. So hopefully on our next presentation, we could start seeing some vertical construction to go up in July, hopefully. So that's the goal.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any questions from the board?
I think we were going to also have a second presentation.
Oh, apologies.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring the other presentation. Sorry.
Okay, and the person that will lead this presentation off is Amatola, the director of our Community Services Department.
And Rod, are you going to drive?
Yes.
Okay. So we also wanted to give you a budget update this evening, because we recently had about a $500,000 augmentation approved by the City Council. And it's a difference to what was approved when we had the award of contract to Laser. That there was a difference in that budget. So tonight, what we want to do, if you could just advance the slide, Rod. Great. We just want to show the budgeting of this project by phases, We're going to actually show you where the augmentation request came from, and then talk a little bit about project management, which was really the trigger that caused this request. Next slide, please. Okay, so this illustration is the project budget by phase. And if you look at the black bar that's at the top of the slide, you'll see that there are two distinct budget phases. There's development to the left of the green bar, and then there's implementation to the right of the green bar. And so development included all the planning and the design of the facility, from the very early work that included conceptual and schematic design, all the way through environmental permitting. That was also in the development phase. Implementation includes the various aspects of construction. It's the actual work of building the facility, and also some of the design work that's expected once the project is under construction. And if you look at the bottom of that slide, you're going to notice the gray bar where it says NEPA CEQA. And that runs through the whole of the project, from development through implementation. This is all anything to do with any environmental compliance. So this was our environmental impact report, the CEQA process. You may have heard in reports, well, some of you are new, but we had quite an arduous task of getting our environmental permits for the project with the Army Corps of Engineers. So really everything from the permitting and then making sure that we're in compliance with those permits, it runs the full life of the project. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to talk about where the actual augmentation came from. And I just want to give you the orientation of what you'll be looking at. So the first column of numbers on the left is the estimated budget that went to City Council on June 8th when we awarded the construction contract to Lathrop. The project budget at that time was projected just under $60 million. The proposed amended budget is in the second column, and that one is about $60.5 million. And we're going to dive into those details in just a sec, but I just want to show you that the difference in the augmentation that was approved was $560,000. Okay, so the next slide, please. Okay, so you saw some numbers dropped out of the slide. That's because I really want to focus on only line items that differed from what we initially projected. And the next slide, please. I also wanted to back out those line items that were under expended. Those line items where it said savings. Some of the work was already complete and the actual costs were lower than projected. So those savings are being reallocated throughout the project. Next slide, please. So just to give you some detail on the increases that did occur, during the design phase, we had some additional scope added to our architect, G4, to their contract work. And they worked with several specialists that helped us obtaining our different environmental clearances. So this augmentation request is so it will cover, so we have to pay for that additional work, and we want to make sure that we have enough money in their contract to see us to the end of the contract. Next slide, please. So this is where there was real significant change to the budget. And this is all to do with project management. So when we started construction, we hired Rod, who you just met. Some of you have met before, some of you it's the first time you met him this evening, and he's the project manager. And we started out with a contract just to see how this worked. He really does fill a critical gap, and Matt's gonna just walk you through that at the end of this presentation. And so what we ended up doing was put him and his company under contract through the life of the project. And so that is the change that you see here. The next slide, please. We also had some work that arose out of a safety element being added. It's the sidewalk that Rod referenced in his presentation. And so that was a necessary change. And again, you can see that was about $560,000 right there. And the next slide, please. So this last item, it's a bit of a mix of compliance related and administrative expenses. The augmented budget includes the adjustment for certain building permit review fees for the project. There were also some unanticipated fees for compliance monitoring during construction, and then the plan review of the crossing where that near where that sidewalk improvement is going to take place. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Matt Lee, our Public Works Director, who will talk to you a little bit about project management.
Thanks, Ann. Good evening, President Tony Jones and members of the board. Like Ann said, my name is Matt Lee. I'm the Public Works Director. And I want to kind of just to jump into the project management component of this work. If you guys can take a look at this slide, some of the top part of the slide that talks about the planning, design phase, and construction, it might be familiar to you because it's from the previous or the second slide of this presentation. Right below that is kind of the time frame. If you see the dates that are really, really small, they kind of highlight when we were going into the various phases. The next about 2/3 of the slides kind of talk about who was on the project at the time. And if you can see for the project manager categories within the planning phases under project initiation and conceptual design and schematic design, and now in construction, we've had over 10 project managers on this project. And I think one of the things that was a lesson learned for us was initially in the beginning, we've had staff and department heads try to run the project. And so we moved our way through the design process in there. But I think as we entered construction, we realized where a bulk of the money is being spent for this project, it would behoove us to have a project manager that can kind of help focus on the implementation of construction. And so I know that there is also a discussion of our construction manager, Griffin, and them helping us with this project as well. And I think traditionally with smaller projects, that role is played by one person where they can play a project management and a construction management role. But because this is a over $40 million project and one of the largest projects in the city, in terms of making sure the project is run smoothly, we realized that we needed to have both roles through separate people. Next slide, please. And so I think what's not common for the general public is just understanding the difference between a project manager and a construction manager. They sometimes seem like they're the same thing. For the graphic above, as you can see, the project managers in the suit and the tie and the construction managers in the construction vest. I think that's kind of a simple way I would explain it to my friends. But to dive into a little more detail, I think it's generally confusing because if you look on the right side of the graphic, they're both the advocates for the owners. They're really to make sure that we get our project delivered on time and on budget and kind of to be our eyes and ears, especially with a very complex construction project, as Rod showed you in the update. The difference between the project manager and the construction manager, as you can see in the middle of that graphic, is that the project manager is actually responsible for the project from cradle to grave. They're focused on the design process during the bid and award and construction and closeout, and even during the planning process. The construction manager, they're actually the leaders on the construction aspect of the project. They're the central point of contact for the construction contract, which is really important. They oversee the quality of construction and they look at the cost and schedule. If you look at the graphic on the bottom, I think it further clarifies where the project manager has kind of a breadth of responsibility. And in the area within construction, in the red dots, that's where a bulk of our funding is currently being spent. As President Tony Jones said, we still have $35 million that's going to be spent in this phase. And because that's a large percentage of funds being spent from the San Bruno Community Foundation at this time, we felt that it was important to have a dedicated construction manager that could be focused on solely the construction while the project manager is focused on other aspects of the project. Next slide, please. And so we just wanted to highlight for the San Bruno Community Foundation, this is actually our project funding plan for the entire project. As you can see, the San Bruno Community Grant Foundation is the highest funder at $50 million. This project definitely would not be delivered without your support. But the second biggest item, next button, is the Park and Lieu fund. As you can see, this Park and Lieu fund was allocated from the 111 San Bruno Avenue development, which was funded roughly about $1.7 million of the work. However, the city received a request from the developer for a refund. The project themselves is not proceeding as planned, as you see in the graphic. They will be submitting a new application in for a smaller project in which development fees will then be collected. However, the timeline of that may not match the timeline for when we need to work when we may need the construction funds for this project. I think the good news here is that it's currently, we're currently still funded, right? Because it's a cash flow challenge that we have. There's still funding there for us to be able to move forward, and we have plenty of time to work through this challenge. Next slide, please. And so that's kind of our budget update. Rod, Ann, and I, and even Javon are available for any questions you all may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Are there any questions from the board?
Through the chair, I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I had a couple of questions specifically on kind of just an understanding of how the outreach is being done. I know there was a slideshow or a slide that talked about the schedule. And then in that category of outreach, it talked about creeks, street alignment. So could you clarify how that's connected to the outreach? And like, what's the, I guess, communication for like the surrounding like residents with regards to like any type of noise or, you know, if there's like a hotline in place, any clarification would be appreciated.
So, yes, so City Parkway work, it's gonna be very busy work. So we intend to do some notification from door hangers to changeable message boards up, to having something in the website as well for people to know what's going on. We have project signage out there that has a website that people can come close and put their camera in, and they can actually see the project update and see what's on the street for this project. So that's pretty much our protocol. Any shutdown of the road, there will be a 7 days notice or 2 weeks notice and things like that. The public would know in advance. We made contact with schools that will be affected when we do that in the future, when we start working on the street that may require closure. That's also being done already. We have a pedestrian map that we sent out to the school when we started the work, when we removed the sidewalk in front of the recreational, in front of the old building. So that way they know where to go when that sidewalk was closed. So we're gonna do the same practice, the same procedure when we start working on the street and close the road.
And then oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to elaborate. In addition, we plan to use the city's social media channels, be it Nextdoor, Facebook, as well as the city manager's newsletter, primarily in the lead up to summer, which is when the sort of the bulk of work on City Parkway, both the street realignment, utility work, as well as working on the creek, which goes under the roadway. And so we'll certainly utilize those methods as well.
Great. And then the other question I had was regarding the Peninsula Clean Air solar panel. I guess I just wanted some clarification in terms of like, is Peninsula Clean Energy going to be responsible once the equipments are, you know, installed? Like, are you all responsible for maintaining it, or is it going to be more of like the city responsible for maintaining the solar panel, like equipment and so forth?
Yeah, that's a great question. We would be responsible. That would be part of the power purchase agreement.
Got it. And you said it was like a savings of like, I forget the number, but like how long would it take to match like that $1.3 million that it would cost to like purchase those solar panels?
I don't think I have I'd have to look at a spreadsheet to answer that question. So yeah, I guess the short is I don't, if you're asking like what's the break even point at which I'm not sure. I'm happy to take a look at that and get back to you. It would be pretty far out because paying the 1.2 million up front, and I'm assuming like there's some cost of capital that's associated with that, is actually much more expensive than the savings from the savings only with no money up front. But I can get back to you on what the crossover point would be. One other thing about the power purchase agreement is after year 20, you would have the option to buy the system at that point. At that point, it would be at the fair market value for the system, so it would be an appraised value, but it should be a pretty low value, 20 years. But the systems can generally last 25 to 30 years, so you'd get another 5 to 10 years where you'd get the full savings. All the equipment would be paid off.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks. So Rod, first of all, thank you for the presentation. Thank you, everyone. And it's good to see some of you again and meet some new faces. And I'm also excited, like all of the planning that goes into this that we don't see until the ground gets broken and buildings go up. And so we just really appreciate all that work that's been done to date. And it'll be fun to watch the project come to fruition. So my question for you, Rod, is you said that the solar plan wasn't budgeted. And so I'm just curious about that. Like how did we decide to go forward with solar, and was it because this other financing was an option? Can you just tell us more about that?
President Natani Jones, I'm sorry, President Moreno. I got my president confused. Let me take that one.
Okay.
I'm probably the person of the four here with the longest history on the project. So the building was always designed with having solar on the roof when we opened as the goal. During the design phase, solar was taken out simply due to financial resources and value engineering. If you may remember when the building was first, I was going to say conceived, it was, we can do this for $50 million, right? And then through design, through cost escalation, the total project delivery costs got to around the $60 million that it is now. And during that design phase, there were a lot of, frankly, wonderful wishes that were left, unfortunately, on the cutting room floor. But one of the things we didn't want to totally leave on the cutting room floor was solar, because we know the long-term savings of solar, right? With a building that's going to generate and utilize this much energy. So during the design phase, the base design of the building was designed to be solar ready. In large measure, we would just need to find the money to put the solar panels on the roof and put in some additional interior workings, and the building would then have solar. And so what the city did is we made a commitment when we announced that we were kicking off the project, is that we want solar on the roof when it opens. And so even though we broke ground, this solar project continued as sort of a sub-project. And as a high level, there's probably 2 or 3 ways to put solar on a building. One is you pay for it with cash. The other is you do a power purchase agreement, and there are many versions of that, and PCE is one. And for a municipal agency, likely the best partner. The other way is there are companies that will put their solar panels on your building, and you have they own it completely in perpetuity, and when it needs to be replaced, they'll even replace it. You're essentially just leasing them your roof space, right? And so we throughout this project looked into various opportunities to provide solar. We have not yet made a firm decision on the path forward, but if we are to keep that commitment, one of the things that we know we need to do is there's going to be a point in construction where we're going to have to make a hard decision if we're to implement solar by the time the building opens. And so one of the ways to do that and to have no capital cost up front is PCE, and this essentially the power purchase agreement option. You know, should we finish the project and there was enough money left over to purchase with the contingency, that may very well be the best option. Unfortunately, with the 1.7 million that we know that we're going to need to backfill with the park and lieu fees for the project and some other things. At this point, we have about $3.6 million in contingency. And so we think it's prudent to start beginning to plan for a scenario where we do a power purchase agreement, which, if you're putting solar on your roof and you have the money, best option to do it is to pay cash and then you enjoy those savings in perpetuity. The next best option is likely some lease to own or power purchase agreement.
So thank you, but then it begs the question that kind of Irving was getting at. If we did, or you did an outright purchase, what's the timeline for return on investment?
Absolutely, and we are still investigating that. And I know we didn't go into sort of the minute detail, but at a prior meeting, Dave and Rod McRae went into the actual tiers of energy purchase and the rate that we would pay for it and the stabilization point. It's an analysis that's currently being done to determine what is that payback period and if the PCE option is the best option. But know that decision has yet to be made firmly.
Thank you. I look forward to your next presentation next month or so.
Thank you.
Priya?
Hi, thank you. I am wondering what flexibility is built into the project manager sort of agreement, such that if there's a delay, for example, related to materials or other unforeseen circumstances as the project continues to roll out, and I know we are all very hopeful to stick to the timeline, but should there be delays, what does that agreement look like, so that in periods where there is perhaps a stall or virtual stall, there's some anticipation of how then those costs might, in the long term be reprojected or dealt with?
That's a really, you want me to take that, Juban?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Rod, let's let Director Lee take that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think if I hear your question correctly, you're asking if there's a delay, how does the project manager share in the risk of that delay? I think what I'm hearing you ask. So
thank you, much more concise.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding the question. So typically with construction contracts, there's a contracting model that talks about construction manager at risk. And so what you're talking about is the shifting of risk. And I think what you're highlighting or what you're touching base on is the fact that public projects usually are a specific amount and they kind of certain times they go over budget. And that's because it depends where the risk is being owned or assumed. And so typically if you have a construction contractor assume the risk, they'll give you a higher bid price. A good example is, I think of a large one that recently happened in the area was the Van Ness BRT in San Francisco. I think that project at the time was estimated to be about $290 million. When they did a construction manager at risk, it came out to about $320 million. I think it just recently completed and had ribbon cutting on April Fool's Day, which is kind of ironic. But even with the construction manager at risk, it still came up to $345 million. And I think, even with that contractual setup, the risk is not all borne on the contractor. If it was, the price would be higher. And I think it's how we structure that contract. And so I think risk is a very hard thing to account for. But for this project, what we did in the beginning, and if you recall the graphic that we had showed up where it showed the 3 buckets, and there was design and the development phase and the implementation phase, and then you had the multiple colors of design and construction, they kind of overlapped. And so the reason why you do that is when you bring on a construction manager, near the end of the design phase, people with construction implementation experience, they can highlight where those levels of risk are. And so that's generally where you can reduce risk based on the traditional model of how we're contracting. I would say for building facilities, and Rod can jump into this afterwards, is that most of the risks occur when you're breaking ground and you're digging up the ground and you know things you don't see, or like for this case, contaminated soil. So that's generally when you get the risk. Once the foundation, everything is kind of built, it's I wouldn't want to oversimplify it. There's people here, but it's almost like Legos and Connect Decks, right? You put everything up, everything's kind of almost foreseen. I think the challenges might be based on maybe spacing or configuration of the building. Sometimes you draw things on paper and you build it out and they don't actually line up. But that's why the value of a project manager and a construction manager are really important, right? To have that robust team for this large project so we can anticipate things in advance. And so that's what we're doing. I think that's why we're setting up the structure in that way. But the way our current contract is set up, the contractor does have some risk because they need to build things as they're planned. But if there are things that are unforeseen, like if we see a, like let's just say, I know for houses right now, there's a shortage on garage doors, and without a garage door, you can't get a green light to move into the building. And so those are ones that we didn't account for because although the impact is really high, although the probability is pretty high and the impact is there, it's something that you just can't account for. If you do, it just kind of increases costs. So unfortunately, that's a long-winded answer, but I think, you know, for us, we're trying to mitigate risk as much as we can through the constructability review that we did very early on, which is a little different than the traditional design build model, and currently with the team that we have. Rod, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think you got it covered, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Pac?
Yes, thank you. First, I want to say thank you for the slides. I love the buckets and the colors. It's a really great way of explaining the different phases of the contract. Piggybacking on Supriya's question, in addition to that risk transfer you're talking about, based on your assessment at this point, is there a risk of the project being delayed in completion because of currently the market condition, bringing up the war that's happening across the sea? Are you looking at potentially because of shortage that we will have a delay? And then is there a financial impact from that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We are fully aware of that, and contractor is not gonna be quiet of telling us what their problems ahead of them. I could share you a few things. Some of the prices going up, like the roofs and things like that. The metal could be going up, but I think this team did a good job of getting those things ordered in advance. There's a lot of work being done at the beginning of the project. Everything got kind of pieced together on paper, so we could order all those pieces in advance. I can't say everything we got it all, but I think there will be something that might come up that the contractor will come and says this is going to be delayed if we don't pay this price. There's some escalation price that we can't control. Those things we have to assess. Is the contractors will be responsible to that, or is the city has some ways to help them out on that as well? So we will assess that if that's certainly going to be impacting our work somehow down the road. So we are aware of that. We know we got the COVID. It's really affecting some of those materials. That's why we really work hard in the beginning, get all those ordered. We know what's going on with the war. I think the biggest item on this project is the steel. We have over 300,000 pounds of steel. This building is not gonna be built without those steel. Those things got ordered on time. So I'm not hearing any bad news about that, because that is a showstopper if we have problem with the steel. So I think that's all I can tell you. There are some challenges when we start building or start digging on the street. Those are deep excavation. We will be exposed to some unforeseen condition, just like what we have when we dug out the wall. Now we have 3,500 yards that we don't know is contaminated. So it's now has to be disposed. Similar might happen in the street. We have to test those soil in advance so it doesn't delay us. So we don't sit in our hands when we find out it's contaminated. So we have to react earlier. We get them tested sooner, so we know what to do, no delay on our operation. So that's what we try to do with the contractor.
Thanks, Rod. Yeah, and so just to add to that, like Board Member Moreno said early on, there's a lot of planning that just like we do that people don't see. And so typically for construction projects, we have a schedule and it's a very complex one. It focuses on critical path in terms of what can actually delay a project. There are certain things that can be a delay, but it's not going to affect us completing the project. So we focus on that, I would say, daily, if not hourly, for Rod and others that are really focused on the project. And so those are the things that we actually track. That's why, like Rod said, we order things in advance and we already know when if things are delayed, how they will affect us. And so we work on that, we focus on that daily. I think from a cost perspective, like Rod said, that's the challenging part where there's unforeseen conditions. And so those are the things we kind of generally need to clear in order to be able to make sure we clear through it. And like he said, he highlighted one of the next levels of risk, right? When we're working out there and we're digging in the street, that's another high level of risk. But once we kind of clear that, we get through it, and the risk kind of reduces as the project moves further along, because the picture is more clear and it makes our challenges a little more easy to solve. And so I know it sounds very disconcerting when you have this large dollar amount and there's a lot of unknowns in the air, and it's really hard. I wish I had a crystal ball myself. I'd probably be a millionaire by now if I did. And like Rod said, there's steel is one, gas is another one, and that's just a real challenge that we're just going to have to continue to monitor. And so those are the things we're definitely looking at and monitoring as we move through the process.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay, are there any questions from the public? No. Okay. Well, definitely want to thank you all for the report on the RAC. It's really important for the foundation to really know what's happening, because we care a lot and we also want to be partners in the process. And so we appreciate all of the information this evening. So thank you very much. And because this was a report, no action will be taken. I will go ahead and move on to our next item. So our next item is to receive a report from Ad Hoc Committee on Program Development and adopt a resolution approving strategic grant to the City of San Bruno supporting the 2022 Community Day in the amount of $30,000. Vice President Ruane will give the report from the committee and then invite our guests from the city to speak. I'll turn the time over to you, Jim. You're on mute, Jim.
There we go. Thank you, Melissa. I will be making the report from the Ad Hoc Committee on Program Development on behalf of my colleagues on the committee, Melissa Moreno and Raul Gomez. San Bruno's Community Day started in 2014 as part of the city centennial celebration, and a second event was held in the fall of 2015 to mixed results. In the 2015 Community Listening Campaign, the foundation consistently heard San Bruno residents express a desire for more community events and activities that would create a stronger, more engaged sense of community in our city. In particular, there was support for making Community Day an annual event. Starting in 2016, when the event was moved to June and organized in combination with the Lions Club annual Posey Parade, the foundation became the lead sponsor of the event and also assisted with attracting event sponsorships from local businesses and organizations. Held in San Bruno City Park, the event attracted thousands of community members who enjoyed carnival rides and games, music, food booths, information tables, baseball games, and community spirit. From 2016 to 2019, the foundation board approved $30,000 grants. In 2017, we also collected and passed on $15,000 in donations from community partners that increased to $21,000 in 2018. In 2019, the city took on more responsibility for soliciting other sponsorships, while the foundation still collected and passed on $17,500 from community partners. In 2020, the city was positioned to take the lead in sponsorship solicitations, and the foundation decreased its grant to $20,000. This had been the plan since 2016, when the foundation offered seed money, but expressed an intent to decrease its contribution over time as the city ramped up its fundraising. Of course, the 2020 Community Day was canceled due to the pandemic, and the city did not attempt an event in 2021. This year, with health conditions improving, the city is relaunching Community Day this June 5th. But it will be a redesigned event, as City Park is a construction zone with the building of the RAC. So the city is moving the event downtown. It will feature San Bruno's diversity and showcase the small businesses which have struggled throughout the pandemic and will hopefully experience a boost from the event. Because the event will have a new format and location, local businesses continue to deal with COVID-19 impact, and city staff is stretched thin. The city does not plan to actively solicit for outside sponsorship this year. The city is requesting a $30,000 grant from the foundation to help cover the $73,600 event budget. The city will cover the remaining balance through wristband sales for the Kids Zone activities and contributions from the City Art Fund and the General Fund. Based on the foundation's experience working with the city on Community Day since 2016, the committee believes that the city's proposal is a reasonable request and plan for 2022, with the hope that if this new concept is successful, the city would be able to ramp up its sponsorship activities and rely less heavily on the San Bruno Community Foundation funding in 2023. The committee particularly appreciates the city's efforts to highlight San Bruno's cultural diversity and its alignment with the foundation's diversity, equity, and inclusion focus, and encourages the city to incorporate as much cultural programming into the event as possible. The committee recommends that the board adopt the resolution approving a strategic grant to the city of San Bruno supporting the 2022 community grant in the amount of $30,000. I will now invite Community Services Director Ann Matola and City Manager Jovan Grogan to share more details about the city's plan and budget for Community Day this year. Ann and Jovan.
Thank you, Vice President Ruane. I will turn it directly to Ann Matola, who runs our Community Services Department. That is recreation, libraries, park maintenance, senior center, yeah, and more. So, Ann, take it away.
Yes, we're quality of life. So thank you for allowing us some time to present to you the grant proposal that we submitted, so you can really kind of join us in this excitement of reinventing this community's tradition. Thank you, Vice President Ruane, for providing the history of the event. I think that's really important for context to see that this is an event that has been evolving in this year because of the construction at City Park. We're presenting an opportunity to transform the event once again. And so I am very happy to walk you through what is planned. Okay, so this year the event has been retooled to be more like a street fair celebration, and will be located in San Bruno's downtown on San Mateo Avenue. By relocating to San Mateo, we really hope that we'll be able to have people rediscover the downtown. We also hope we can bring in some new visitors to the area as well. The event is going to continue to have some of the same elements that were in the Community Days past. Opportunities for participation, volunteering of our different nonprofit groups, but we really want to encourage activities to engage an audience of all ages. So we did reimagine this event a little bit to celebrate the diversity of the city, and staff has put together a really vibrant lineup of cultural performers that are representative of our community. And rather than bring in food from food vendors, we'll also be highlighting the diversity of the global cuisine that we can find on San Mateo Avenue and create a food map. And so in this way, we also thought we can connect event patrons to the many cultures that reside here. You can see some of the program activities listed here, and for some reason the formatting jumped on Zoom. That does happen sometimes, so I apologize. But I'm going to walk you through the draft map So you can kind of try to orient yourself and envision to the experience that will be on San Mateo Avenue. So as I mentioned, we do really want to focus on global cuisine, which I think is one of the features of downtown. I love that our temporary location for our office is down at the old Fireman's Hall, so we can sample this food on a daily basis. But our restaurant community, we're going to highlight, and on the map, they're indicated by the indigo circles with the numbers in them. And then there's kind of a draft map down in this area. So that'll be the food map for the event. The kids zone is in this area. I'm going to go left to right. So to orient yourself, this is San Mateo Avenue and this is Genevieve. And so these are the two banks here. And so the kids zone, we're going to be using the bank parking lots where we're going to have lots of inflatables, climbing walls, kind of a portable mini golf course. And we really want to have an area which is similar to what we did with carnival rides, but more appropriate for the downtown environment. We have 2 stages of entertainment. At Centennial Plaza is really the featured stage. And this is going to be where we showcase different cultural music and dance performances. We are booking Polynesian dance, ballet folklorico, taiko drummers. So we really want to kind of have a rich, vibrant kind of diversity of what we present there. Towards Angus Avenue in San Mateo, we're going to have something a little bit on a lower key if people want to get out of what we believe will be a crowded end at the south end here at San Mateo. End of San Mateo. They can kind of have more of an indie vibe at this stage. They'll be more acoustic, and we do have things that buffer it in between. So this block, we're calling it the art block because this is where we have Pino's palette and the frame shop, and there's also a gallery there. And we're really fortunate that we'll be partnering with the artists at Tanfran to kind of create this kind of like a very large chalk art experience. And so we have 5 different artists that will be creating pieces, and they'll be working with members of the public that want to create pieces of art throughout the day and all along a pretty wide stretch of San Mateo Avenue. As we kind of mosey on down this way, we have an installation of lots of our different big vehicles from the city, the different public work vehicles, public safety vehicles. We're going to create a touch-a-truck experience for, well, I would say children of all ages to kind of interact and engage with some of the really cool vehicles that we have. And you're also going to find, we're also going to create like different things for people to stop and just kind of like recreate as they're listening to music or waiting for their children to finish with chalk art. There'll be things like, you know, cornhole. We're going to drop some mini golf courses and other types of interactive activities. Another feature of this event has been the involvement of our different service organizations, the different departments within the city that want to, like all of which want to use this as an opportunity to connect with the public, let them know that the services that they provide. And so we will be setting up their different exhibits. All of them are going to ask to have some type of an interactive element. So it's a very engaging type of an event. So it's a little bit familiar in a different location, but we're really excited to see what this new format, how this new format plays out down the avenue. Also included in your grant, I know this isn't the most exciting slide, we did have to produce the timeline, and we're well into planning and booking a lot of the equipment and entertainment we need for the festival. We're projecting that the celebration will cost approximately a little over 73,000. I think it's 73,600. And we are asking for the grant of 30,000 this year. Vice President Ruing mentioned that we are trying to be really sensitive. A lot of the businesses that we've worked with in the past that have supported this, that everybody's still in this kind of recovery mode from COVID. Also, because this is a new concept, I think it's really kind of advantageous to be able to produce this in a year and then really get buy-in for the community and support so we can actually show them what the new event is. We do plan in future years to have a more robust sponsorship solicitation. So that concludes my presentation, unless you had anything to add, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board? Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, this is a great presentation. I love how it's going to incorporate some of the listening campaigns like community needs. I know for community 4, it talked about events and activities like the Latinx Polynesian activities. So I'm glad to see that there's going to be some performances and activities focused around that. I'm glad that's going to be moving towards like the downtown to really kind of help our business community down there. I think one curious question I have is that I know there's a community group exhibit going to be incorporated into this community day event. I'm curious if there's been any discussions or consideration about like a business group exhibit, because I know there's like a couple of like empty, buildings along San Mateo Avenue. And I know in our community need #1 from the listening campaign 2021, it talked about the need for like beautification or upgrades in the downtown. And one of the sections talked about attracting more businesses. So I don't know if there's been discussions about how to use this type of event to like attract more businesses into San Bruno's downtown area.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. At this point, I don't know that we have a exhibit with the Chamber of Commerce or even the Entrepreneurship Center set up there, but why don't we take that back under advisement and look into it? But one of the best things we can do for our downtown is just to highlight it and show it off. And being able to bring this event downtown this year is probably one of the better examples of something we can do and execute well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, otherwise, I'm looking forward to it.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Great job on the presentation. Looks super exciting. I didn't know I was performing, but now that I know, I'll be more than happy. No, I'm totally kidding. But thank you. I'm so excited for it. And I'm going to go ahead and see if there's any questions from the public. Nope. Okay. Well, if there are no questions from the public and no more questions or comments from our board, may I have a motion to adopt the resolution approving strategic grant to the City of San Bruno supporting the 2022 Community Day in the amount of $30,000?
I'll make the motion to approve the $30,000 grant to the 2022 Community Day event.
Awesome. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Well, congratulations, and we're excited to partner again on another project with the city. So
we actually need to hold a roll call vote.
Roll
for
call.
The record,
Sorry, I
Melissa.
got too excited because I'm performing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Secretary Gomez.
Thank you. Board Member Irving Torres.
Aye.
Board Member Supriya Perry. I didn't get that.
I'm sorry, aye.
Thank you. Board Member Melissa Moreno.
Aye.
Treasurer Pac Lin.
Aye.
Secretary Raul Gomez is Raul, or is it Raul? Is that aye? Sorry. Vice President Jim Rowan.
Aye.
And President Melissa Natani Jones.
Aye.
We're all aligned. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to item C. Receive report from the Ad Hoc Committee on Education Initiatives and adopt resolution approving strategic grants to the San Bruno Education Foundation and the Cappuccino High School Alumni Association totaling $290,000 to support continued implementation of the Music Education Strategic Initiative. Secretary Gomez will give the report from the committee and then introduce our guest to speak.
Thank you, President Antoni Jones. I will be making the report from the Ad Hoc Committee on the Education Initiatives on behalf of my colleagues on the committee, Pac Lin and Superior Perry. So as you know, from the outcome of the Strategic Plan 2.0, the board created the committee in January 22 to investigate ways in which the foundation can support San Bruno's K-12 public schools. The committee has been investigating various avenues for supporting the schools, And out of those discussions with leadership at the San Bruno Park School District and Cappuccino High School came the opportunity for a second extension of the Music Education Strategic Initiative. Excuse me. Last month, we presented the idea to the board and received positive feedback. We have taken that feedback and developed a proposal, and we're bringing it back to the board this evening for final approval. To recap, the Music Education Strategic Initiative is a partnership between the San Bruno Community Foundation, the San Bruno Education Foundation, the San Bruno Park School District, Cappuccino High School, and the Cappuccino High School Alumni Association, and was created with the goal of making music education a hallmark of San Bruno's public school. The original grant was for $295,000 to be spent over the 2017-20 time period. And then the initiative was extended to an additional year with $68,000 in funding. Cappuccino High School's funds were used up on schedule in the 2021 school year. But due to challenges of delivering the elementary school music program via distance learning during the pandemic, we extended the grant period over the current school year for the San Bruno Education and San Bruno Park School District grant. Music program activities funded through the initiative have included new uniforms for Cappuccino High School Marching Band, transportation for the Cappuccino music groups to attend performances and competitions, instruments and supplies for the Parkside Intermediate School and music program, elementary music education for all San Bruno Park School District elementary schools through Music for Minors, fund development for activities to ensure that San Bruno Education Foundation and CHSAA are able to sustain the music program to once San Bruno Community Foundation funding sunsets. Excuse me. Historically, the music programs at Parkside and Cappuccino have been a point of community pride. The San Bruno Park School District has suffered tremendously throughout the pandemic, and the students have been deprived of quality music instruction over the past 2 years. Not surprisingly, enrollment in the Parkside school electives have declined, which have the ripple effect of feeding fewer 9th graders into the CAP music program. The district now seeks to jumpstart Parkside's music program to remedy the COVID's impact on the music instruction by launching a new 6th grade music program. The educational benefits of music are well documented, and the hope is that the many 6th graders will discover a love of music and desire to continue on with music classes. To support this new 6th grade program, the district proposes to hire a second designated music teacher at Parkside. The budget for the proposed program to cover this new teacher compensation package would total $226,000 over 2 years. While the first priority is the new teacher, the district is also seeking funds to related programs expenses, including supplies for the 6th grade music course. The district estimates for instruments, repairs, and other supplies is about $66,640 over the first 2 years of the program launch. Because of the Music Education Initiative has been a K-12 effort, we're also proposing an additional $20,000 in Cappuccino High School music program, $10,000 over the next 2 school years. These funds will be used to cover transportation and other costs related to performances and competitions, the cost of replenishing the instrument supply, and funding the instrument vocal sections, coaching, and top needs for the program. To ensure that Cappuccino music program continues to thrive, the committee recommends providing modest grant funding each of the 2 years of the proposed extension of the high school program. As explained in the staff memo, the total amount for the 2-year extension of the initiative would be $290,000. $270,000 of that amount would be awarded to the grant of the San Bruno Education Foundation to support the launch of the Parkside 6th grade music program. $150,000 in the first year and $120,000 in the second year. $20,000, $10,000 each year would be awarded to Cappuccino High School Alumni Association to support the CAP music program. And please note that our proposal does not fully fund all of our needs identified by or at Parkside and CAP. The grant for Parkside program will fully underwrite the cost of the teacher for the first 2 years and 66% of the startup cost, excuse me, and the district will cover the remaining cost. The Cappuccino Music Boosters will fundraise to cover those costs not covered by our grant. The community strongly supports the additional 2 years of the Music Education Foundation and proposed and recommended the board approve the resolution before it. The funding builds on the investments the community has already made to the Music Education Strategic Initiative and acknowledges the toll that the pandemic has taken on school programs, as well as the creative outlet that the music can provide for students dealing with mental health stresses of the past 2 years. In particular, the funding enables Parkside to get the revamped 6th grade music program off the ground and provides the time needed to adjust to the staffing arrangements so that the district can cover the costs associated with the additional music teachers starting in the 24-25 school year. Finally, the committee appreciates that the funding will benefit students at the San Bruno Public, Intermediate, and High School, and therefore have a broad impact throughout the entire community. However, before I turn the mic over to our guest, I'd also like to mention that the community is exploring various other initiatives to support schools of San Bruno. I recently attended a meeting at the San Bruno Park School District PTA-PTO Council, and we distributed a survey and spoke of it during the meeting. And it was asking for school funding that is needed through all of these sites at all schools within all PTA and PTO presence within San Bruno. We hope to share our thoughts and additional education initiatives in the coming months that come out of the survey. But back to the Music Ed initiative. Tonight, we have representatives from our partners in this initiative with us, and we'd like to hear from them directly about their plans. First, I'd like to welcome San Bruno Park School District Interim Superintendent Michael Milliken, along with Director of Educational Services Angelica Zermeno, I hope I got that right, and Parkside Principal Stacy Russell to tell us about the Parkside program. Then we'll hear from the Cappuccino High School Principal Jesse Boyes and Music Director Jonathan Hugh about the Cappuccino Music Program. We also have San Bruno Education Foundation Brian Vanderlet and Renee Callentine of the San Bruno High School Alumni Association here tonight. So with that, I will turn it over to, excuse me, to Mike Milliken, I believe would be first, or do I?
Thank you so much, Raul. We appreciate everything you've done to work with the school district, reach out to our PTA and PTO organizations and help us with this grant request. And also, Leslie, we appreciate your support as well. I apologize, I don't have slides for this presentation. I spent a good chunk of the morning substitute teaching in kindergarten today, so that's my excuse. But I want you to know, hopefully you've been able to review the materials and see that we've given this a considerable amount of thought. We've outlined the budget. The salary figure comes from our average teacher salary. So we know this year's average salary. We know the amount we're giving, a raise we're giving for next year. So the average teacher salary next year is going to be $110,000, and then subsequently expected to be $116,000. So that's where the $226,000 is coming from, making clear that we don't have any teachers on staff making $226,000. But on a more serious note, COVID really has taken a toll on our educational program, especially our music program. We typically start it in 4th and 5th grade. Our rising 6th graders, so our students currently in 5th grade right now, have really gotten the short end of the stick, so to speak, with regard to music instruction. Even with having music for minors for our 5th graders this year, it's really been interrupted with the Omicron surge and our inability to bring those folks into classrooms and have everybody be safe. And so we've had a lot of remote instruction, and that can be difficult to execute. And so our rising 6th graders really have not had a quality educational or music program as we would normally offer in our district. So our interest is to jumpstart the music program. This will help streamline our elective offerings in 6th grade. Right now we offer a wheel, which is very difficult for us to staff. And so this will help us both provide a more focused and higher quality music program, but it also give us something that we're confident that we can execute over time. And that's why we're confident that once we have a year or two to shift away from the staffing that we currently have, we can stick with the music teacher and pay for him or her from district funds without any concern or issue. So we plan to require music as an elective for all incoming 6th graders, and they wouldn't all take the same thing. There would be 3 courses. So first there would be instrumental music for students with some instrumental experience or an interest in picking up an instrument. Second would be vocal, so chorus, and then third would be music exploration. And so that would be a series of units taking students through a variety of instruments and approaches to music. And I want you to know that we're committed to making sure that this teacher is successful. So we would provide dedicated time for him or her to partner with the existing middle school teacher that we have, as well as we're designing our instructional calendar to align with the high school district. So we'll have similar professional development days. So hopefully we can send our music teachers to the high school and we can make sure that we have an aligned program over time. Then as part of the budget, we also have about $60,000 for an investment in instruments as well as sheet music to make sure that we have a quality experience for the students. And the benefit of hiring a second music teacher for us is not only do we have someone who can focus on our 6th grade program, but it frees up our other music teacher to concentrate on our intermediate and stronger students at the 7th and 8th grade level to have a more robust pipeline to Cappuccino. And so we're very excited about this initiative for a number of reasons. First, our rising 6th graders have had a very sort of poor music education experience, and this Jumpstart will go a long ways to remedy that. Second, music offers benefits far beyond the discrete skills: teamwork, concentration, math, language, creativity. We've already posted the position. Granted, I want to make clear, we're not taking anything for granted, but we need to be competitive and try to hire people as quickly as possible because there is a teacher shortage. So we have posted this position, and Principal Russell tells me that we have strong applicants who have already applied, and we're ready to interview these folks next week and get this going. So we're very excited about the prospect of these strong candidates. And then last, over time, this investment provides a meaningful program improvement to all the students who will be coming through Parkside Middle School and coming through the San Bruno Park Public Schools. And so this will have ripple effects not only for the CAP program, but also for the community more broadly. And so we're excited about this improvement to our program, and one that we think with a short-term infusion of your funding, we can raise the quality of our program and over time shift it to be completely district funded.
Thank you for the additional information, Superintendent Milliken. I absolutely agree and cannot agree anymore that again, having our 4th and 5th graders really again being rising 6th grade music experts, if you will, and again a feeder into program into Cappuccino, I think it's the exact right thing to do. And again, it has been a model of what San Bruno has done for many, many years. So glad to see that again, we're putting effort into, and again, ensuring that will continue in the future. So thank you. Did Principal Russell want to mention anything, or Is that
I
all?
just wanted to thank everybody for this opportunity. You know, it's my office used to be right next door to the music room, and some people might be annoyed by that. But talk about a little bit of joy and serenity. There were times where I would actually get up out of my seat and go look next door because I thought they were playing a record. I thought for sure they were listening to something. And to, you know, hear these musicians, I mean, it's amazing. And so I want to bring that back to our community to uplift. There's nothing like seeing these kids have so much pride when they go in and they're performing for their peers and their families. And it's just such a joyous time. And we need to bring a lot of that back to our community, to not just share within Parkside, but beyond Parkside, the San Bruno community as a whole. So thank you for this opportunity.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And Superintendent Milliken, I appreciate again you having me at the PTA PTO meeting a couple weeks ago. And again, I look forward to the input that we do receive from the survey that is being worked on, and really looking forward to seeing other opportunities that we could help support San Bruno Park School District. So thank you both very much. So we'll transition over to Jesse Boyes, principal of Cappuccino High School, and Jonathan Hugh.
Yeah, Mr. Jonathan Sue. Thank you, Raul. It's really an honor to be here, and thank you to the board for your consideration. I want to start like Stacy. Any good principal, we have our own anecdotes, right? We live in data all day, so it's nice to feel good at times as well. I brought my two daughters to the Pops concert 2 weeks ago, and they're both still singing the songs. It was probably the best experience in 4 years that they've had with their dad as a principal at a high school. I do really think that says a lot. We recruited Jonathan 2 years ago at a Kennedy Middle School down in Saratoga, and I will say that we were able to recruit Jonathan because of the community that we have and the support we have for music education in San Bruno. I think what Michael and Stacy raised is a really important point, that we as a community, if we want to bring in great educators, we need to show support and invest in music education. At Cappuccino, we hope next year, for the first time in many, many years, to have a 5th music section. Mr. Sue teaches 4 music classes currently, along with a credit recovery class, and we're hoping to focus his time purely on music. And so the investment at the K-12 level is very helpful for that. So I do want to highlight the Community Foundation's investment there, that it has really paid off. Even given the pandemic, we are still seeing numbers rise. And I think that's really a tribute to you, Jonathan, your passion for music and spreading that to young folks. One of the things I really just want to highlight at Cappuccino is Jonathan's done an incredible job at creating sections within the music department. We now have like little, just various wonderful kind of compartments that make up the whole, whether it's percussion or color guard, the jazz band. And that didn't exist, a decade ago. It takes time to rebuild. And I think that's very much an artifact of the Community Foundation's investment. I really do appreciate the K-12 nature of this consideration in this grant. I mean, they are all our kids, right? And so we take care of all of them. I do want to highlight the word investment because I think there are 7 people on this call who represent the Ed Foundation, the Alumni Association, and the various public schools in San Bruno. Like, we know that these are really important dollars, and that the asks you receive are enormous. And there's not a lot of bad ones out there, right? So it's, what's the best way to invest your dollars? And I have particularly appreciated in San Bruno how music can bring people together, whether, it's a day at the park, whether it's a concert. Plug for our spring concert, April 28th, if you're interested. Music has a real way of bringing people together. And it gives a lot of times our students who don't have other opportunities to showcase their skills in front of lots of people. And my one anecdote that I'll finish with is, a young student, not a young student anymore. I knew her as a freshman, very quiet young lady. She's now a senior, and she sang at the Pops concert. And I saw her the next day, or on the next Monday, and I gave her a little love. I was like, so-and-so, what an amazing job. And she just kind of she was just radiating this energy that I hadn't seen in years. And so I do think it's just such a great investment in our young people, and I appreciate the consideration. I'm going to hand it off to Jonathan just to talk a little bit more specifically about what we have used at Cappuccino in terms of the previous grant, and then what this $20,000 would be used for if the board decides to move forward. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I just want to piggyback off of everything Jesse is saying. And so I do want to echo that this investment in K through 12, not just at Cappuccino, but K through 12, it's very important. I started my career as a middle school music teacher, and I fully understand that the importance of what happens in the elementary and middle school, because the high school definitely depends on it. I came in fall of 2020, and there was I think an extension, one more year of grant money that was given that year, and I remember working with Paul Linden and some members here on amending some of that language so that we could support distance learning. And I think while I don't think anyone really had a fun time doing distance learning, but I do feel that stepping back and seeing what we created, what we were able to do online, separated from one another, it was successful. I'm not fond of those years, but I think the flexibility in using those funds, getting us through distance learning was very needed. So thank you for those funds. We were able to, we had to supply a lot of distance learning materials, a lot of books that just needed to be delivered to kids, instruments, and the tail end of those funds, we were able to, at the end of last school year, we were able to come back into a hybrid scenario, and we were able to use some of those funds to support students who remained online, but also students who were able to come back in person. For the funds that are being considered for next year and the year after, there's really three areas that we're looking to spend on. The first area is transportation, and as we come back, as we try to expand, we had 3 marching competitions this year. We want to do more next year. We want to take the orchestra somewhere. We want to take the choir somewhere. And as we do that, we do need to pay for buses, something we did not have to do online. And so some of the money will be used for transportation. Someone alluded to fundraising, and we, in order to refresh our instruments supply, even though we have great instruments, at some point we're going to need to be refreshing some of our marching percussion and other instruments. And as our, I want to talk about percussion real quick. As our percussion program grows, we do have some kind of big ticket items that are that we're thinking about purchasing for our students to use, some kind of concert level, university level equipment. And some of that's in the 5-figure range. And in order, I think having some of the support from the community foundation, that allows us to kind of inspire our community, like, hey, we're doing a matching fund, a matching fundraiser. So for every dollar we raise, we can use the community foundation money as well. And so that's outlined. That was outlined in our proposal as well. Some equipment refresh, and then finally, coaches at the high school level. There's just it's very comprehensive, and just like the second music teacher that the middle school is bringing on here at the high school. I have my own staff of, I have a color guard instructor, I have a percussion instructor, I have a TA who's not considered staff, but who has been invaluable to helping me run the music department. And just having to oversee band, orchestra, choir, marching band, color guard, winter percussion, jazz band, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Having music staff to help is invaluable. And some of that, some of the money that we're currently using from Music Boosters is paying for, those staff members. I'm also wanting to bring in, as we bring our program to new heights, one of the things that great music programs do is bring in instrument specific coaches. So while I teach the whole symphonic band, once a month, I would really love to bring in a flute coach, a clarinet coach, a saxophone specific expert, a percussion specific expert, and really give our kids kind of exposure to like real kind of surgically precise information on their instruments, which allows me then to really focus on the whole group as we're going throughout the year. And then kind of to end my time, I do want to share one student experience. We have a band student this year, new to band, and joined the band and joined the marching band. And at our last marching competition, this was back in October, at our last marching competition, I think mom and dad were there to cheer on the band as we marched down in Pleasanton. And mom came up to me and told me so-and-so really loves being in band, which, that's great. But she did also share that prior to joining band, her student was having, trouble making friends and was unfortunately bullied. And mom came up to me and told me she's noticed that so-and-so is just a lot happier, has found their place, has friends that care for him, has a section of, the same instrument group caring for them, and just is like completely changed. And this is a with the director change and with rebuilding and coming back into in-person, our marching band, they scored fine, they weren't first place or anything. But when I heard that that story and just that feedback, it just really it just meant a lot to me, and really kind of reinforced like what we're doing here, in addition to creating great art, and but we're really caring for kids, and it's very important. So and I wanted to bring that and share it with you all, because your support is very much helping create this community and the care for the kids that we so desperately need. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I just have to say, you are absolutely amazing. I can tell you that I attended each and every home Cat football game this last year and saw you in action, and the band is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, even after these horrible last 2 years that we've suffered through, again, the band still marches on, and it sounded absolutely amazing. So congratulations and great job. So I just wanted to thank you. And Principal Boyce, I just wanted to say thank you again. I have an outgoing senior. I apologize for being personal, but I wanted to thank you for everything that you've done for him. He's had a phenomenal 4 years, and I just wanted to thank you for all you've done for all of the kids at Cappuccino. Thank you. So to that, I guess we'll transition to Brian Vanderlet and Renee Callentine, who may want to say a few words from the Cappuccino High School Alumni Association.
Renee, you want to go first? Well, maybe I'll take up.
Thanks, Brian.
Well, I'm the least important voice in this discussion, so I'll be very brief, but I did just want to highlight why I'm so excited about this proposal. Some of you know me well enough to, I have opinions, and if I'm pretty dead set against making bad bets for things I don't think are actually going to work out. This is a good investment. And the reason I'm so convinced of that is in the 6 years I've been working with our schools and in particular focused on the music programs, I've never seen a stronger team in place to really see this through to success, I think. And part of that is rather than what can frankly all too commonly be reactive kind of crisis control, this proposal is actually proactive. It's well thought out. There's a plan in place. The San Bruno Park District actively sought to align with Cappuccino in order to deliver foundationally trained musicians into Mr. Hsu's capable hands. I think this is a really great plan in place, so I'm all for it.
Thank you, Brian. Renee?
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I just, I echo what Brian said and what everyone has said, and I want to especially thank the Community Foundation over these last few years for being so light on your feet to, help us move things and change things and with the focus of wanting to keep this program going, because it does mean so much to our community and to our kids. And you've been incredible. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
No, thank you both for all you do and again, your kind words. I appreciate it. So thank you. So Melissa, I'll bring it back to you.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments from the board? No? Oh, yeah. Board Member Perry?
I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for coming here and talking about your experiences and putting names to faces. So we appreciate it very much, and we're really excited for all that you do. And I have 2 younger children, and I can only begin to imagine the last 2 years, and I am excited and hopeful seeing just the strong leadership that is going to move us forward and past some very testing times.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Board Member Torres.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Appreciate this presentation. I think it was what Principal Boyce talked about, just making that investment in our community. I totally agree. As someone that has grown up in San Bruno, I took in my first 2 years of high school, joined the band, but I unfortunately came from extremely low income family. So my last 2 years, I couldn't afford the instrument. And so I just know that making this investment, buying instrument is going to be so valuable for our San Bruno kids. And I know the importance of music education in terms of just getting them to really just believe in themselves, bringing that confidence. I know when I was playing the flute back in high school, it helped to really develop my confidence. So once again, just thank you once again for this presentation.
Thank you. Anyone else? I just want to quickly say go Panthers and go Mustangs. I just want to thank all of you for being here tonight. I think all of you being here shows the deep commitment you have to youth and arts, which is so important and powerful. And as a former chorus member from Parkside, I just remember that some of those really formative experiences being in music was so helpful in my growth. And I can only imagine how it impacts our young people, especially coming off of a backdrop of a pandemic and just all of the challenges that come with it. So I applaud all of you for being here this evening, and thank you so much for all the work that you do. Okay, so now I am going to ask any questions from the public. No? Okay. So may I have a motion to adopt the resolution approving strategic grants to the San Bruno Education Foundation and the Cappuccino High School Alumni Association totaling $290,000 to support continued implementation of the Music Education Strategic Initiative?
So moved.
I'll second.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Secretary Gomez, roll call vote, please.
Sure thing. Board Member Irving Torres.
Aye.
Board Member Supriya Perry.
Aye.
Board Member Melissa Moreno.
Aye.
Treasurer Pac Lin.
Aye.
Secretary Raul Gomez is an aye. Vice President Jim Roy
Aye.
and President Melissa Natani Jones.
Aye.
Great. We're all in alignment. Thank you.
All right, congratulations. And we look forward to partnering with all of you in the future. Thank you so much. Okay, have a good evening. Thank you. Okay, folks, we're almost there. And thank you for sticking around and being here. We're on our item number D, or letter D, to receive a report on the Tan Fran Memorial Project from the Ad Hoc Committee on Tan Fran Memorial and adopt a resolution increasing strategic grant funding to the Tan Fran Assembly Center Memorial Committee in support of construction of the Tan Fran Memorial for the amount of $50,000. And as the chair of the Ad Hoc Committee on the Tan Fran Memorial, I will introduce this item. As you all may recall, last June, the board approved $150,000 grant to the Tan Fran Assembly Center Memorial Committee to support construction of the Tan Fran Memorial at the San Bruno BART station. This memorial will honor the nearly 8,000 Japanese Americans who were interned at the Tan Fran Assembly Center during World War II. After receiving the update from the TACMC at our last board meeting, the Ad Hoc Committee met to discuss the challenges the project has faced as the TACMAC's remaining funding needs to ensure the memorial is completed this summer. As the president, Doug Yamamoto, told us last month, a water line that runs underneath the site could interfere with the cherry tree roots in the future and has caused yet another delay for the project. As you also may recall, the water line supply for an underground fire hydrant and supplies water to the police station, 2 garages, and the shopping center. And originally BART wanted TACMC to relocate the line, which would have costed an additional $30,000 to $50,000 and caused further delays. Fortunately, the committee has been able to work out an alternative solution with BART and instead will build a concrete covering over part of the line located closest to the proposed cherry tree with no added cost to the budget. If in the future, due to age-related failure or some other cause, BART has to remove or replace the water line, that cost would become BART's responsibility and the committee would assume responsibility for the cost of moving or replacing the cherry tree, granite pavers, and signage if needed to restore the memorial to its previous state. Although the alternative will not impact the project budget, it has delayed construction for most of March. As a result, a new timeline for completing construction and holding a ribbon cutting ceremony has shifted to the summer, most likely July. The project budget is now approximately $1.5 million, and the committee is currently looking to raise at least an additional $58,000 to cover the remaining construction costs and another $43,000 to cover ongoing administrative and maintenance costs. While the committee continues to actively fundraise and is currently working on 4 donations in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, in addition to smaller donations, the committee believes that the importance of this memorial and the need to complete it this summer warrants an additional donation from our foundation. The incarceration of 8,000 Americans of Japanese ancestry is an important part of San Bruno and American history that must not be forgotten. And we believe that this memorial, which is spearheaded by former internees and their families, which has faced numerous obstacles, needs to be completed in this 80th anniversary year, while some former Tanforan internees in their 80s and 90s are still living. The committee also believes that the project is consistent with the DEI principles the board has espoused as especially important at this time when Asian Americans continue to face acts of discrimination and even violence in the Bay Area and beyond. The committee has told us that the additional $50,000 will give them the financial breathing room to finish construction on the current schedule, and the additional donations they are pursuing will go towards the project's ongoing administrative and maintenance expenses, as well as any additional construction costs that come up. I should also note that the committee is pleased that the City of San Bruno, through its Art Fund and Alexandria, the new owner of Shops at Tanforan, are also contributing to this project, which each with $50,000 donations. This is a true community project. The committee is recommending that the foundation increase its grant funding to the Tanforan Memorial Project by $50,000 so that the total grant awarded would increase from $150,000 to $200,000. Before I ask for comments from the board and public, I'd like to give our friends from the Tanforan Assembly Center Memorial Committee who are with us tonight, President Doug Yamamoto and Project Manager David Feelier, to say a few words.
Good evening, and thank you for considering another request to help fund the Tanforan Memorial. We've stopped construction for this whole most of March. We're still waiting word from final approval for the drawings of the concrete encasement of the water main that we're trying to protect and BART is concerned about. Originally on our plans, it was like it was smaller water line. It's actually a 12-inch water main buried 6 feet deep in the ground. So it's pretty important and pretty large and very expensive to move. But we've been able to come up with this one solution to mitigate the cost, and also equally as important, allow us to continue construction along fairly close to our original schedule. If we had decided to follow BART's first preference, which was to dig up the old line and move it, that would involve the fire marshal, approvals, I don't know how many agencies, permits back and forth drawing. We'd be, well, we probably wouldn't be restarting construction till July. So that's one of the reasons we've gone this route. David talked with the project manager today, and he can give you our latest updates. But that's what we're dealing with. It's just nature of construction. Things when you start digging in the ground, things come up, and so we're proceeding along, and we're going to get this memorial built. And David, you want to add any more to that?
Well, I just want to refer back to your earlier presentation on the RAC, the Recreation and Aquatic Center. I learned some things in that presentation, but I also heard some things that were not at all surprising. The unforeseen conditions, particularly when you go into pavement, sidewalks, plazas, as we are now, you don't know what you're getting into. As Doug emphasized, it's one thing to move a 2-inch water line. That's the kind of size of a line that might supply a large house, to a 12-inch main that is the fire hydrant for the whole Tanforan Center. That's a big deal. So we're quite pleased that Kevin Jarvis, who is our project manager with Block Construction, was able to work out this compromise with BART. The plans were sent to Bart last week. I talked to Kevin this afternoon. He said Bart contacted him today, asked for a few other questions. He got those answers to them this afternoon. And he told me today that he expects approval of those, the encasement project plan from Bart in the next couple of days. If that occurs, fingers crossed, Kevin says they can start construction early mid next week. I was again referring to our project schedule, which we have from Block, and it shows a line item, move the water line, to have been completed by March 7th. So there you have it. You can, it's very clear. It's right in the schedule. We've lost a month minimum. I would say probably more realistically 6 to 8 weeks. But that's why we're talking July for an opening instead of May. So I have my fingers crossed. I hope we're in good communications and everybody wants to do the right thing. Even Bart, which sometimes we get concerned about, they are really helping in this instance. So we're looking forward to that. And we very much appreciate what you folks are doing and adding to our support possibly today. So thank you.
Yes, I'd just like to reiterate what David said, and thank you very much for considering another grant. And just actually on a personal note, on an aside, just listening to the conversation about the music program and your support and your realization of how important that is to youth. It reminded me of when I was going to, middle school and high school. I played the trombone. I was in the jazz band and the orchestra for the whole time I was there. It provided a foundation and appreciation for music that has really helped me through my whole life. So I really appreciate and thank you for that support of that music program, because by doing your support now, it's going to pay off to the kids years down the line. So in terms of appreciation and all the other aspects of being educated in San Bruno. So anyway, but that's on a different subject, but I just wanted to throw that out there. So be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Doug and David, for just sharing a few remarks and this quick update on the project. I've been on this committee for over a year, I think, and there's just been so many challenges and barriers. Every time we think we're going to start doing something, something else comes up. And so I just really appreciate the determination and integrity that the TACMC has really put to continue and just pursue this project, because it's so important. Anyone from the board have any questions or comments for our guests? No? Okay. And I don't think we have anyone in the public anymore, so I don't think there's any public comment. So if there are no additional questions or comments, may I please have a motion to adopt the resolution increasing strategic grant funding to the Tan Fran Assembly Center Memorial Committee in support of construction of the Tan Fran Memorial by the amount of $50,000?
So moved.
Second.
Great. And so Raul, would you please take a call vote, please?
Sure thing. Board Member Irving Torres.
Aye.
Board Member Supriya Perry.
Aye.
Board Member Melissa Moreno.
Aye.
Treasurer Pac Lin.
Aye.
Secretary Raul Gomez is an aye. Vice President Jim Royne.
Aye.
And President Melissa Natane Jones.
Aye.
We're all aligned. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, board. And again, thank you to our friends who are here presenting tonight, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so we are at E, to receive report on other programs. And this will be from Leslie, and I'll turn the time over to you.
Okay, I know it's late and I only have a brief report on our other programs. The two I want to highlight are the Crestmore Scholarship and our Community Grants Fund. With regard to the Crestmore Scholarship, we received 54 applications by the deadline, which have been reviewed and evaluated by our volunteer selection panel, and they will be meeting soon to select the 2022 Crestmore Scholars. And so we'll be getting you notification about who those scholars are later in April. We usually try to notify them of their awards by the third week of April so that they can take that into consideration when they're deciding what college to attend. And usually they have to notify schools by May 1st. And then we will be recognizing them at our June 1st board meeting. So that will be our opportunity to meet them. There may be opportunities for a board member to attend award ceremonies at Cappuccino High School and Skyline College, and we'll be in touch with you to see who might be able to represent us at those as we get closer. With regard to the Community Grants Fund, I just wanted to highlight some of the 2020-2021 community grants. So they all, after their grant year finishes, have to get in the next 2 months after that. So they were due March 1st, a grant report. And so we just received last month a slew of those, and I wanted to just share with you some of the highlights. So I'm going to share screen. And, okay, why is this not moving? There we go. So at the end of 2020, for the 2021 calendar year, we awarded $300,000 worth of grants. 23 programs were funded. As you will see by the list below, those are the organizations that received our support. And it's always a really sort of diverse group of everything from very well-established nonprofits in the Bay Area with professional staff like Second Harvest to Silicon Valley, to your, very grassroots, volunteer-only based organizations like the Parent Boosters of 72, which supports the local Boy Scout troops. So it's always a great group, a very eclectic group of grants we give out, and it just showcases all the different things that are happening in San Bruno. Let's see. So the first one I wanted to highlight was Peninsula Volunteers. The goal of the Peninsula Volunteers Meals on Wheels program is to increase food security and alleviate hunger in seniors and adults with disabilities through proper nutritional support and home delivered meals. Meal recipients are able to age in place, remaining as independent as possible while decreasing their need to access emergency services or be institutionalized. In 2021, with the help of a $20,000 community grant, the Meals on Wheels program delivered 17,000 meals to 68 San Bruno residents. Although clients are eligible based on being homebound and having poor functional status rather than income, 74% of Meals on Wheels clients have incomes under $25,000 per year. So it does very much support a low-income community. In addition to delivering meals, the Meals on Wheels drivers do wellness checks and provided much needed human interaction for the recipients, especially during the pandemic. Here's one anecdote they shared with us in their report. There was one 85-year-old San Bruno resident who began receiving Meals on Wheels in 2016. A foot infection left him unable to stand and confined him to a wheelchair. He also suffers from a heart condition, edema, and macular degeneration. But with the daily meal delivery from Meals on Wheels, he would not be able to live alone. Or without the daily meal delivery, he would not be able to live alone. So that's an example of a San Bruno client who benefits from this program. The foundation awarded another $20,000 grant to Meals on Wheels in our last cycle. So we will be hearing from them again in a year. Parent Boosters of 72. This organization was founded in 2016 to provide financial, logistical, and administrative support to Troop 72 of Scouts BSA, formerly known as the Boy Scouts of America, but as you know, they are now supporting both boys and girls. It supports Troop 72 as well as the newly formed Troop 4172, which serves local female scouts. The group used our grant to replace the storage unit for the troop's equipment and supplies that has outlived its useful service life. As their troop membership has grown significantly over the last few years, the need for various outdoor and training equipment has grown with it. At the same time, the condition of their storage unit had deteriorated and was no longer adequate, provided adequate space for their needs. The Elks Lodge of South San Francisco is the troop sponsor who provides the space on their lot. They requested that the troops replace the shed because of its deteriorating quality. So Parents of 72 used the grant funds to purchase the materials with which to build the shed, and adults and scouts worked together to build it. It provided not just a storage space for them, but actually a wonderful opportunity for the scouts to learn valuable construction and teamwork skills. And that was a $2,800 grant. Legal Aid of San Mateo County, it has been a multi-year grant recipient. In this cycle, we awarded a $20,000 grant for their Home Savers program. In 2021, the grant enabled the Legal Aid Society to provide direct legal services to 58 low-income San Bruno households, totaling 163 individuals who faced eviction, habitability issues, and other illegal acts by landlords. The Home Savers program also provides resources and information to help low-income tenants understand their rights and utilize new and ongoing eviction protections, which evolved during the pandemic. Here's one anecdote of a success story of a client helped by our grant that they shared in their grant report. Jason, which is an alias, rented one unit in a duplex in San Bruno. He had had some disputes with the landlord over the condition of the home and the way the landlord treated him. The landlord served Jason with a 60-day eviction notice that did not state the grounds for eviction. Jason suspected that it was in retaliation for the way he had stood up to his landlord and asserted his legal rights. The landlord claimed it was because Jason had an unauthorized person, his sister, living in the home. Jason had evidence that this was not true and that his sister only came to provide daycare for Jason's child while he was at work. The landlord then filed an eviction lawsuit, otherwise known as unlawful detainer, against Jason. The Legal Aid Society of San Mateo County represented Jason in the case and filed a motion to dismiss the case. Using new legal tools provided by the Tenant Protection Act, the Legal Aid Society of San Mateo County attorney planned to argue that the 60-day notice violated the TPA by not stating the reason for the termination. Just before the hearing on the motion, the landlord and his attorney dismissed the eviction case against Jason, allowing him to keep his home. So that is one story of one of many individuals supported by this grant. The last grant I wanted to share with you is our grant to Via Heart Project last year. We have given them grants, a number of different grants over the years. Via Heart Project is dedicated to the awareness, education, treatment, and prevention of sudden cardiac arrest. And they're working to make San Bruno a, quote, heart-safe place, unquote. With an almost $16,000 community grant, in 2021, Via Heart Project installed 6 bilingual, English-Spanish bilingual, automated external defibrillators, or AEDs, on the Skyline College campus, available to save the lives of the thousands of community members who are on the Skyline campus each day. So that's the picture, shows the example of one of the AEDs and the wall cabinet that also were funded by the grant. We also gave them a grant for this current grant cycle, a grant of $23,000, and that's enabling Via Heart Project to install 5 more AEDs in other community facilities around San Bruno. They're working with the San Bruno Parks and Rec Department as well as the fire department to determine where those AEDs will be located. Via Heart is also using our grant to support CPR training for 7th and 8th graders at Parkside Intermediate School. And actually just today, Jessica had the opportunity to visit the training at Parkside and took some photos for us, which we'll be sharing with the community in the coming days. So those are just some of the highlights for the grant, of the 23 grants we gave out last year, but give you a representative of what we were able to do with that $300,000 last year. And that is my report on other programs.
Thank you, Leslie. Any questions from the board? Comments? Okay. I don't see any hands. There is no one in our public currently, so I don't think there's any questions there. And so this was just a report, so there's no action to be taken here. Thank you, Leslie, for the report. We will now shift to item number 8, board member comments. Would any board make a comment? I saw all the comments I need. Okay, great. So now we are at item number 9. May I have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, great. So for all those in favor, I believe you can say aye. There's no need for a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Hey, thank you all. We are adjourned. It's 9:26. Appreciate you all. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, May 4th at 7 p.m. on Zoom.
You guys take care.
Good
Take
night,
care, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
Aye.